Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Leadership Impact 21, a professional development day for Calumet Region business leaders. I'm your chapter president, Dan Zeli, and today I have Jonathan Lee from Vitality Chicago, our authorized training partner. Jonathan, can you tell us about yourself and your education, your credentials, and industry experience, my friend?
Sure. Hey. First of all, Dan, thanks for inviting me to this opportunity here. I'm really glad to be here. So I guess I'll start saying that my initially coming out of college, I majored in electrical and computer engineering. So I'm a very analytical person in nature. And over the years, I've been in consulting for about 25 plus years. And I started as a programmer, but then I quickly went into the project management area. And since then, gotten my PMPs, gotten a certified discipline Agile instructor to teach discipline Agile courses, gotten my CSM, PSPO. So I have a number of different certification, as well as I also dabbled on Microsoft customer relationship management solution. So I'm also a Microsoft certified solutions expert in those areas. So I have a lot of project management expertise or experience, as well as the Agile, and also in specific types of technology. Because again, I have an engineering background, so I'm kind of like a techie.
Wonderful. That's great, man. What was your school? Where'd you graduate from again?
From University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign.
Okay. I'm a Purdue guy, but
you're a Purdue guy. Well, you're Indiana.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. I hear you. Well, hey, I know, we came up together in PMI. I think you and I first met way back in, I think it was 2014 or so. So I know you've been involved with PMI for a long time, and you served on the board as the PMI Chicagoland chapter president and all that. But can you describe your journey with PMI and the Chicagoland chapter?
Yeah, sure. So I guess, it started with when I was at Unisys, right? I was a programmer, but then I got into project management. So I was taking a lot of the project management courses from they call it Unisys University. And so back in 1998 or so, I first got introduced to this project management. And then I actually attended one of the PMI's event in Philadelphia. And so I was like, okay, looks like I need to get my PMP. Right, but that kind of times it a little lapse. And then in 2005, I got my PMP. And then I said, oh, there is a local chapter. So I was like, maybe I should look into it. But that didn't happen at least for another couple of years. So like in 2007, I finally engaged because one of my friend, actually Anthony Mercino, who's my partner at Vitality Chicago, he kind of nudged me and said, Jonathan, why don't you come and volunteer? Let's work on this volunteer appreciation event. So I said, sure. So that was actually, we held the first volunteer appreciation event for Chicagoland chapter. And from there is basically history. I became a director of volunteers, served for a couple of years, and then went onto the board. The board liked what I did. I was very energetic, I guess, for lack of a better word. And I have to be honest though, when I first volunteered, I wasn't thinking about I want to go and serve the community. It was like, oh, what's in it for me? Kind of being selfish a little bit, but then as soon as I started volunteering, I realized, what, there's more to this than just PDU, right? And so that's why I volunteer for the board, served as a VP of membership, a VP of business outreach, and then technology, and then eventually became chapter president, and I served for 3 years. So it's definitely been a journey, and I'm sure, Dan, you'll agree, there were many nights when I burned that midnight candle.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And then you ask yourself, why am I doing this? But time and time, whenever that happened, I realized, what? Yes, there's value here because I'm helping the profession. And also at the same time, I was getting implicit benefit, right? Learning and then a fellowship with fellow, colleagues in the profession and all that. So to anyone that's listening to this and is pondering, hey, should I volunteer? I would encourage them to volunteer because it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing for me.
Absolutely, man. And I think you were hitting or circling around one word, and that keeps driving us, and that's passion. Yeah. Passion for, getting more out of the profession of choice and all that. Hey, real quick, let me go off topic a little bit because, I got some similarities to what exactly you just described. Do you believe that when you first started out and you first got your project management professional, your PMP degree, did it change your life? Do you think it was that much of a life changer, game changer for your career?
Absolutely, because actually it just so happened when I got my PMP in 2005 was the same year that I actually started my own consulting company. And that actually helped me propel to get a consulting gig at Motorola, because I was certified project manager, right? And so I was a program manager for their front-end Linux Java program, which was very high profile back then. So yeah, I definitely attribute getting my PMP certification to getting opportunities that I would have not gotten it before. Absolutely.
Wonderful. That's great. I mean, we're on like parallel journeys, evidently. Okay, let's get back into some of our questions, though, that I wanted to ask you. But hey, first of all, you mentioned your consulting career and all that, but now can you tell us about your company and, Vitality Chicago right now, its mission, and how it can help all of our project teams, especially our project teams here around the South Shore of Lake Michigan and the Calumet region?
Sure. So Vitality Chicago it's an agile consulting organization. So we basically help teams thrive, we say, and organizations transform, meaning we help teams that wants to implement agile way of working. We help them with training and coaching services. And so we help the organization with their agile transformation through training, through coaching, and whatever that they need.
Oh, super. Okay. Well, you got the agile background, definitely understand that. But hey, for our uninformed viewers or people who are just finding out and learning about agile, or even wondering what is waterfall? Why don't you go ahead and describe the whole life cycle process? Let's start off with what is it? What is waterfall?
Sure. So, I mean, when they say it's waterfall, because the water falls downward, right? And when we look at it typically it's from a software development lifecycle, SDLC, right? You've heard of this, and it's predictive, meaning we know what's going to come next. And so when you look at the waterfall, it's about initially the people go and gather the requirements to find out what customers want. And so the business analysts gather the requirements, and then they analyze it, and they hand it over to the architect team or to the technical team for them to design the solution, right? So that's the next step. And then they hand over it after that to, let's say if it was done by a senior architect, then they hand it over to the programmers where they go and start programming, right? So they're handing off what was done, and then kind of continuously handing off and downstream. That's why it's waterfall, right? And so it goes from a developers to test, and then once it's tested, then you go to what's called like customers user acceptance testing, where customers test it, and then finally they package it and they deploy it. So that's the SDLC, and they call it as a waterfall. But there's a lot of pros and cons of this. I mean, that's why this agile thing has been very hot these days, right? Because it just takes so long for waterfall projects to see the end result. And there's also many studies been done that says, to like 70% of projects fail, right? And people, they invest millions of dollars or hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, but they don't get anything because nothing's been delivered and the project's a failure. And with the technology advancement, agile way of working actually changes that entire the way the projects are delivered, because now by agile way of delivery, you're delivering in smaller increments to the customer so that they can see the value more immediately. So going from a waterfall, when we talk about, what is agile? Agile is an iterative approach to project management or solutions development. So it allows teams to, if they're basically going through the gathering the analysis, requirements analysis, design, develop. They're doing all these things, but they're doing it in a shorter iteration, in an incrementally. They're doing this in an iterative manner. So instead of taking 18 to 20 months for that waterfall life cycle to happen before you see a result, they shrink it. So you got the analysis, design, develop, testing, all that. Think of that as it's making it upright, right? And then team is working on it straight down quickly, and they're delivering an incremental valuable, whether it's a solution or a product, so that customers can use it right away. You get the feedback, and they repeat that cycle over and over again. And for those of you that are familiar with Agile, like Scrum, they call that a sprint. And they do in each sprint, they deliver something, and then they give it to the customer, get customers' feedback, and they repeat that process over and over again.
Wow, that's concise and all that. I think when I was first getting wind of Agile way back. I grew up cutting my teeth in industry, mid 80s in aerospace. And in the defense contract, everything was a SDLC, very stringent, very sequential waterfall process. When the words Agile start coming out, people started taking notice and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at those beginnings. Can you tell us about maybe the Agile Manifesto and when did it come out and how did that come about and how did the processes now become a front runner and preferred choice of most organizations in the way they work now?
Yeah, no, great question. So this is a story that's told by many people, right? And people want to hear like, how did it all happen, right? So the story is that in February of 2001, 17 software developers, or I would call them thought leaders back then, they got together in a ski resort in Salt Lake City, Utah, to talk about, hey, their challenges and how can we produce better results for our customer, right? Because now, but I want to actually pause here. I mean, they created what's called Agile Manifesto and as well as 12 principles and all that. And what I often hear, and when we deliver training to a lot of the organizations and whether public or private, they say, well, you know what? This is software. It's Agile is applicable to software. How's it applicable to me? And I think people often doesn't realize or connect the dots. And what I want to share is that software developers back then were the ones were at the tip of the spear. They were the first ones that felt the impact and they felt the need to change the way they developed the solution because technology was advancing in such a fast exponential rate that if they were to follow this waterfall method and deliver something in 18 months or 12 months or whatever, technology has changed, right? The market has changed and it's already an old product, right? That's not going to have a long life, shelf life. So they have to think of something better, right? And they couldn't spend the time to create documentation, which was very heavy in the waterfall way of working, right? Because like you said, in defense technology, everything you gotta cross the T and dot the I, you gotta get all how it's gonna be actually look like in a documentation, and then you go and program or develop it, right? But that was not a viable solution because technology is changing so fast. You gotta act quickly, right? And so that's why software developers were the first change it. But so then my point here is that there's a point I'm trying to get to, and that is why it goes back to actually much further back to 1947. This is when the transistor was invented. And because at the very beginning I said I'm an electrical and computer engineering major, so I actually had the luxury of experiencing or the opportunity to experience this. When I was in college, I actually fabricated chips in a silicon wafer, and I got to see how things were designed and why they work. And these transistors are what I would call the building blocks of technology, right? Just like how humans are, that we have 37 million cells in our body. Transistors basically make up this overall the technology. How when people say advancement in technology has been exponential, we're talking about how fast transistor has increased. In 1971, the first commercial CPU, that's a central processing unit, that's a computer processing unit you see in every PC, your cell phone, anything that has calculating, it's all has it, right? Back then, the first commercial CPU had only 2,250 transistors, but because every 2 years, the number of transistors doubled, okay, because technology was advancing. By 2016, there were 7.2 billion transistors. Now, to put that into perspective, okay, for those who are like, oh man, he's just talking numbers here. Think about it. When you were a kid and you had a Lego set, if you had 2,250 Lego set pieces, you could make some decent stuff out of it. But imagine if you had 7.2 billion Lego blocks, right? It is enormous amount of resources. That's what I mean. The technology advanced so fast that there is so much abundance and resources that now people, were able to afford it. They would have access to it and they were able to develop it. That's why you see so many companies popping up left and right. It's no longer the IBMs or Microsoft or those big companies that only existed because they had the funds and they were there for hundreds of years. For example, Microsoft wasn't that long, but if you look at some of those big companies. So my point is that because technology was advancing so fast, and then so much resources are available, people can create, and there are more brains out there that can create and then put it out to the market, and so higher competition. And so now going back to the software developer, the technology is advancing. They have to quickly change and adapt to the new technology, to the competition. That's why they were forced to adopt a more efficient way, more productive way that can add value to the customer sooner. And that's why they created this Agile manifesto.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you what, let's kick it up 20,000 feet. Look at it from a business point of view. Is this, you can actually see some businesses, like you were alluding to, could just die on the vine. Are you kind of looking like business agility or something like that, or the needle, the company's noticing that they needed to change?
Absolutely. I mean, business agility, right? We talk about organizational agility, business agility. I mean, people, organizations like Blockbuster, Kodak, Britannica, right? Even Taxi, all these organizations that does, you know what? We can't fail. We've been around for a long time. Nokia is another example. And Motorola. I mean, they were the inventors of those, Dynatec cell phone. But all these companies went out of business because they didn't have business agility. Either or they weren't focusing on the change and being able to adapt quickly to market environments. And so if you don't have the agility, you're not going to survive very long. Even if you're the king of the hill. Like, is an example that I use as Nokia. They were the king of the hill in 2007. They had 50% of the market share of mobile phone over in the entire world. But that same year, when Apple introduced their iPhone, the touch screen, they capture 5% of the market share the first year, and then it's been just downhill for Nokia and Apple just climbed, right? And so you got to have that business agility, absolutely.
Yeah, one of my favorite examples was always remembering of, during the same time frame that we were talking about during my aerospace defense days of the mid '80s, all the way even up to maybe just a year or two ago. I'm relating the old Blockbuster Video, and Family Video. Okay, there's a market now. Look, now what's replaced it? You got your Netflix and so forth, right?
That's right. I still kick myself to this day. I had an opportunity to buy Netflix at like $1.50 and I didn't. And I went and bought Nortel, and I went a bankrupt. I'm like, why did I do that?
Penny stocks, man.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, back on a serious side though. That's all good stuff. Being, having your business being agile and adapt to change is always great. But let's look at Agile and some of the distinctions that maybe there might be between the different agile processes or agile credentials. Can you describe some of those major distinctions between discipline agile and the certifications, credentials that are out there?
Sure. So just a little bit of history on the DA here, right? Discipline agile isn't as it hasn't been around as long as, let's say, Scrum, right? Or just Agile Manifesto, founded in 2001. And Scrum's been around for a while. So you got Scrum.org, Scrum Alliance, and they all have certification like CSM, which is a certified Scrum Master, or professional Scrum Master, professional Scrum, a product owner, and you got SAFe, and you got many other certifications. But all these Agile certifications, they're all great, but they are what we call like a frameworks. They're very rigid. Okay, they tell you this is how you have to do it. At least from my perspective and from the DA perspective, we see that as very more of a rigid way of saying every organization has to adopt this and do it this way, where DA is actually different. Discipline Agile is all about options, having choices. And then we say context counts, because every organization, every team, every individuals are unique. We think differently, our team is different, and our challenges are different. And so the way DA looks at it is that, well, we can't just force upon every organization the same way of working. You have to take into consideration their context. And that's where DA, kind of shines. And DA was founded in 2009 by Mark Lyons and Scott Amber. I'm sure you heard of this before, right?
Oh, yeah.
And PMI acquired them in 2019. And since then, PMI has been promoting Discipline Agile because I know PMI has been in the market looking for Agile organization to acquire, at least from what I understand, right? And so they found a Discipline Agile, which had all the elements that's necessary, and I took a look at under the hood, and I really appreciated what it had to offer, and so I also jumped in with both of my feet, and that's why I'm a Discipline Agile instructor.
Yeah. For students and other working professionals here or folks in the region here that are looking to maybe take on different roles, in projects, and say they want, they have aspirations of getting an Agile certification. Maybe you could tell us, who is the Disciplined Agile Scrum Master, the DASM, targeted for in the workplace? And, what kind of experience and level of knowledge is required? I mean, is this something that anybody with, any background could come into, or do you have some sort of working knowledge that you have to be a project professional to do this? What kind of level is required? What do you think?
Yeah. So good thing is this to get or I guess sign up for Discipline Agile Scrum Master course, which is the very first course that DA offers.
Okay.
You don't have to have any experience. Okay. So just like the CSM, you don't need any experience to take Certified Scrum Master certification from Scrum Alliance, or PSM from Scrum.org. You don't need any prerequisite experience, right? Now, with that said, if person, for that matter, any team member can also take the DASM course. Okay, so what I usually tell people is that if you're an aspiring team lead, you want to take the DASM, Discipline as a Scrum Master, and if you are if you would be one of the team members, also consider taking DASM, because you need to know, right, what this is all about. Right? So it doesn't require any experiences, and but it does help to have some Agile knowledge. Now, the DSM, however, it does go over all the elements of it. But what I've seen in the past is some students that has not been in this area at all. Sometimes they go, "Oh, I wish you can tell me more about writing a user stories or what's an acceptance criteria." We do cover it, but sometimes they feel like they need a little bit more information. So from our organization perspective, sometimes we actually do offer pre-Agile courses to kind of supplement it. But with that said, people can just take the DSM and then start their journey from there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, with that, Jonathan, let me ask you another question. Where is PMI headed with Discipline Agile? What's the future?
Great question, Dan. But I guess I'm probably not the right person to answer that as a specific question. However, I think the question that I would ask is, where is project management profession headed, right? After all, PMI acquired Discipline Agile. And, I've heard, and because I've been involved with project management, Chicago chapter for many years, and had a lot of conversation with a lot of colleagues. We talk about these days, instead of PMO, value management office, right? Instead of PMO, we got to focus more on the value. And it's about, when we look at the Discipline Agile, I think one of the reasons why PMI is acquired Discipline Agile is we are, as a profession, I don't think we want to be always in the command and control manner, right? Typical project managers are what we call like command and control. When we look at Agile, it's about empowering the team. It's about servant leadership, right? And so when PMI acquired Discipline Agile, and as you probably know, with the 7th edition of PMBOK being released, when you look at it, they have moved away from processes into principles, right? And when you look through it, a lot of the content actually contains sprinkles of Discipline Agile. Okay, and actually I brought it up to PMI when we were going through some of the review. They wouldn't answer it, but there was definitely a lot of influence of Discipline Agile into the latest version of PMBOK 7.0. So where is project management headed? Well, I mentioned with the technology advancement, they are adapting more Agile way of doing things. They're coming up with a hybrid way to manage projects, not just typical waterfall. So there's a hybrid versions of this, and or going these, all the way into Agile way of Discipline Agile.
Wonderful. Good answer. Next question I got for you is, what about Discipline Agile, and why should it matter to you and to your organization, and basically, how does it serve the organization and the business units in general?
Good question. Well, I would say that discipline agile helps organization better structure and transform its team to adopt agile ways of working. I mean, they can certainly go out and look into, as an example, Scrum, Scrum.org, Scrum Alliance, and get, or SAFe if it's a more the enterprise or less. There are many frameworks out there, but again, I mentioned they're pretty rigid, right? They want certain things done in a certain way. Where discipline agile is all about, where is your organization in, right? What situation are you facing? What challenges are you facing? And then it says, start where you are, and here are the tools. And DA provides you the guardrail, so-called, right? It's not saying you have to do these. It says context counts, choice is good, be pragmatic, right? And then be awesome. And those are some of the principles of DA. And so it tells you, here are some of the tools that you can use to customize so that it fits your context. And that's where I think discipline agile can definitely help organizations successfully transform into more an agile organization.
Excellent. Thank you, Jonathan. Let's transition right now. Let's take maybe a closer look at discipline agile. So the question is, this is going to be a big one for you, but how does discipline agile work?
Yeah. So when we talk about discipline agile and how it works, I say you have to be agile before you can do agile. And DA talks about 4 views. It talks about DA mindset. It talks about DA practices and DA people and DA like flow. And let me kind of break this down a little bit here.
Okay.
So, and when I say be agile, I'm really talking about the mindset, right? I mean, you've heard of the Agile Manifesto and 12 principle, right? It sets a good base, but DA mindset really emphasizes and then puts in what I would say more meat to it, right? More substance to it. And what DA mindset does is that it's actually broken into principles and promises and guidelines. And basically what it says, and some of the principles that I mentioned earlier, you want to be awesome, right? In other words, you have to be trustworthy, right? You have to earn the respect of your peers or your team. You have to be reliable, you have to be honest, you have to be ethical, and you need to be collaborative. So these are some of the principles that's underlying under the DA, how the DA teams behaves, right? So those are some of the characteristics of be awesome. And then we talk about the context counts, right? And be pragmatic, choice is good, and you have to delight customers. So these are the mindset that we want all the DA practitioners to have, right, as a foundation. So that when they're doing something, they're not approaching it from, let's say, how can I put it? Let me give you an example. So you're in the Calumet chapter, and you have volunteers, right? And volunteers volunteer to help you with PD day or in any event. You're going to have some volunteer that joins. They both come and volunteer, but one's going to volunteer with the serving heart. They say, you know what? I want to give back. I want to help the profession. And also I want to network. I want to learn, but they have a good heart, right? And that's what they are there for. And then every now and then you're going to have some people that are more self-centered. So I'm sorry to say it, but some people are self-centered, saying, what's in it for me, right? It's not a bad thing to have, but some people are more so than the other, where they say, I'm just here for a PDU, nothing else, and that's all I want, right? So if we see those two people serve, right? Although in the eyes of other people, they're both volunteers, but their mindset, their behavior, how the foundation is different. And so when they're different, how they come off to their members or to the guests or to the overall effectiveness of that event, it shows, right? You can't put your you can just put a finger on it, but you know how they are different. You talk to them and you know, yeah, that's a good person that we want to try to recruit or have volunteer more, versus, you know what, that person, not so much. They have much to learn, right? And so this is where the DA mindset really shines. It sets that foundation. It tells you what is it that you need to do, right? What is the mindset that you need to have? And so I really emphasize those when we teach the Discipline Agile course, so that they understand. And it also talks about, instead of from a project manager's perspective of command and control, we talk about servant leadership, empowering people. How do you help others to be successful? Because when they succeed, you succeed, your team succeeds, your organization succeeds. So that's like the foundation. And then we talk about DA practices. And these are like the DA toolkit that we talk about. And this is where Mark and Scott have spent years and years of looking through and experiencing various different agile way of working. And they have picked out good practices, whether it's from a SAFe, from XP, from Kanban, or Scrum, or even traditional. And they put it into this toolkit that almost like a cliff note. You can go in, if I want to plan the release, what are the things I need to consider? And so that's available for you. That's one of the, when I say do Agile, that's where you can go in and look things up and then get some ideas on, oh, okay, this is an option I should consider. So that's like the DA toolkit, the practices. And then the other area is people. So discipline Agile is also structures certain members of people in the team. And obviously, you heard of product owner. That's all in the product, the DA team. You got the team members, and then you got what's unique about DA. It has an architecture owner. So that's something that it doesn't have in like a Scrum world. And often product owner may be very business focused, but they don't have a technology background. While DA addresses that with the architecture owner within the team that can provide that technical knowledge and expertise to make the team more effective. So then those are like different types of DA team members, as well as the discipline as a Scrum Master. Okay, so that makes up the core delivery team of the DA. And then the last one is the flow. DA, I mentioned choice is good. Well, DA provides like 6 different options of different life cycles that team can choose, whether it's Agile, which is based on Scrum, or Lean based on Kanban, or continuous delivery Lean, continuous delivery Agile, as well as program, which is for team of team. If you have many sub-team, you can use that model, or exploratory lifecycle for the organizations that are exploring possible product or services. So it offers, again, a lot of choices, right? And if you, let's say, you're interested in take the discipline Agile training, you will hear about all these things, so you know what to choose and what to use when that is applicable for your organization.
Understood. Thank you, Jonathan. So, hey, Jonathan, say I'm a new project manager and my boss in my new company said that they wanted me to deploy a discipline Agile Scrum Master scenario with this brand new project. And as I'm looking for the roles, I'm going to need to pull this off. What kind of skills in these roles would I need to consider as part of the team? Primary, secondary, can you help me out?
Sure. So from a primary role perspective, discipline Agile team needs a team lead. That could be like discipline Agile Scrum Master, or it could be on project manager, whoever is the lead for that team. Okay, so you need a team lead. You need a product owner, okay, who is responsible for the product backlog, who prioritizes it and then provides insights into the team on what is the highest priority item that needs to be worked on by the team. And then we have the architecture owner, who kind of helps the product owner, because product owner tends to be more business oriented. So you need a architecture owner who's more technical to provide the supporting knowledge from a technical standpoint. And then we have, as I mentioned, team members, right? They're the ones that are doing the work, whether it's the software delivery team, or it could be, let's say if it's a transportation or an insurance, it's the whoever makes up that team, right? It could be actuary, it could be an underwriter, whatever that may be, that's the team, okay? And you typically want anywhere from, 5 to 9, team sizes. But again, in DA, we're not as concerned about the number of team members as long as it makes sense for the organization. And then obviously you have stakeholders. So those are what DA considers the primary roles. And then from a secondary role perspective, and it could be any members of the individuals that maybe they could be a specialist, could be a business analyst, or a testers, or a domain expert that has a special expertise. They will be your what we call secondary or supporting roles, and you bring them on as needed. And sometimes if they are adding a lot of input, then they can actually become a primary as a part of the team.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jonathan. Hopefully that can help other people within the organizations here that are watching this. Roles are very, very common, and it's an absolute in the daily work life of any project and and any time at work.
Yeah, and key thing I guess I want to highlight here, Danny, is that
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what specific titles or that they do. You have to look
Mhm.
at it from the team perspective. What what type of skill sets do we need in order to deliver end-to-end solution, right? And then you identify those people and bring to your team. That becomes your primary team, the core team. Okay. And so what you want to do is you want to minimize the need for the team to go outside of their team to for help on completing some work, right? I mean, if it's a special one-off, that's why you have supporting roles. But if it's a constantly happening throughout the solution cycle, then you want to bring that person as a primary team members.
Gotcha. Also, in today's Professional Development Day conference, our colleague and our speaker, Spencer Horn, is covering the neuroscience of effective leadership. So along this theme, can you describe what is emotional intelligence in Agile and why is it important? Can you talk about emotional intelligence?
Sure. Actually, emotional intelligence is one of my favorite topic. It's also a very great topic, you know. Um, uh, when I first got out of college and got my first job, I didn't know anything about emotional intelligence. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't think it mattered. I thought the only thing that mattered was, hey, what do I know, right? My skills, technical skills, or to be able to do certain things. But I realized over the years how important emotional intelligence is, right? And the Daniel Goleman, who's one of the psychologists who popularized this emotional intelligence, said 80%, up to 80% of adult success comes from emotional intelligence. So when you look at people moving up the chain or up the ladder in the organization, it's not always the people that are very, you mean, obviously if you're smart, good, but that doesn't mean that you're going to succeed. You have to have a very good emotional intelligence, right? And that's different from IQ. IQ peaks on our early 20s, but emotional intelligence, we can continuously develop it throughout our adult life. And they use the what's called neuroplaticity. This is where the brain's ability to form new bonds and new pathways, and then it'll change how your circuits are wired. So when you learn better emotional intelligence, such as knowing having self-management, self-awareness, or social skills or social awareness, you need to like learn those skills if you're lacking it, and you can learn it. It's possible. So if you have a healthy emotional intelligence, you will be that much more successful, not only for in your career, but in your social life, your family. I mean, it's I would say is very important piece of area that people needs to be trained on and learn about, which I don't think we do enough about. And I think I'm glad that Spencer Horn is covering the neuroscience of effective leadership, because that's what's gonna, I think, make people have that to become or not become, right? Of successful leaders. If they don't have a good emotional intelligence, no matter how smart they are, they're not going to go very far.
Very good. We've covered a lot today already. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you probably got questions for Jonathan, especially about Agile training, discipline Agile training, business transformation. So Jonathan, if our chapter members wanted to get Agile training, where could they find out more about the course offerings and schedules that Vitality Chicago has?
Sure. I mean, they can simply just go Vitality Chicago. That's Vitality Chicago, all in one word.com. And you can just visit our website. You can go click on Agile training, and we'll list all of our available Agile trainings that we have. We also provide in-person or online, as well as remote. I mean, we've been doing Zoom, for the past year and a half now. So they can certainly do that. Or just give me a call. You can email me at jlee@vitalitychicago.com, and I'll be more than happy to follow up.
Thank you. So for just a follow-up question to that one, what about companies that want to pivot to the Agile transformation? And is there coaching available? In other words, maybe like a premium offer?
Oh, well, absolutely. So as I mentioned very at the beginning of our this session here, said we are coaching and we provide Agile training. So we definitely offer those type of a training to organizations that wants to embrace and adopt Agile way of working. If they are just getting started on it and they want some guidance, we can provide coaching and we can provide training for their team so that they know what Agile is and then take the right step forward.
Wonderful. There you go, folks. That's Vitality Chicago, our authorized training partner for Discipline Agile Scrum Master and Discipline Agile Senior Scrum Master training. Vitality Chicago is just minutes away from our region over here, and I encourage you all to contact Vitality Chicago or reach out directly to Jonathan Lee, and he can provide additional information on the offerings. So, Jonathan, if you want to go ahead and give us some closing remarks and maybe a summary of Agile, your experience, or some of the principles, I'll let you go ahead and have the floor from here. But thank you, Jonathan.
Well, thanks. Well, first of all, again, thank you for inviting me for this opportunity to have a conversation with you, Dan, and to share with your chapter. Just looking back on my career and what I've seen, I think it is very important that organizations, if they are not considering agile way of working, they need to consider whether, regardless of whether you're in the technical or technology industry or not, it's about not only it's about doing, but it's about the mindset, right? So much in our lives, we don't talk about how we need to behave, how we need to respect and trust and be honest and be ethical and work together with one another. If we can do that well, right, a lot of the trouble goes away. I mean, we talk about, and people say it's not the work that stresses you out, it's the people you work with, right? And I think there's a huge the big message there, and I think if we can work together with the DA mindset, I think all of us will be that much more successful. And then if you can leverage some of the practices that's available in DA Toolkit, along with the flow and life cycles and all that, it can only make organization more successful. So with that said, again, thank you for inviting me to this session.
Wonderful. Thank you. To the rest of our chapter members and other folks watching this video, if you have questions, additional questions about how can PMI Calumet chapter help you in your journey to get Discipline Agile Scrum Master training, work with us as we routinely provide this type of training and member discounts to organizations and especially to our members. So feel free to reach out to us at pmi-calumet.org at the info page, or reach out to me directly, president@pmi-calumet.org, and we'll help you with your professional development needs and making sure that you get certified. My guest today is Jonathan Lee from Vitality Chicago, and this is Leadership Impact 21. Have a good day, folks.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.